this is one of the most important initiatives we've ever had. I mean, some of your managers have probably been talking about this. I see the Promise print pins, which was one of the best practices we saw in Florida just last week, and I understand if you have that, you're certified. So if you're certified, stand up. All right. That's great. Well, you're going to hear a lot of interesting facts tonight, and we have North Star's got a Tony Robbins. Anybody hear Tony Robbins talk, how inspirational that is? We've got one, and he's our COO, Mr. Brian Sullivan.
Everybody hear me okay? All right. Echo. Every call has opportunity, or as Mike Day was saying earlier, every conversation has opportunity. We're here to talk about this phrase and what it means, and a little bit about how we stumbled on it, but it's really obvious that if you're here, you've probably had this virtually beaten into your head, perhaps literally beaten into your head. And maybe you're kind of tired of hearing it. So all I want to do today is try to not repeat what you may have already heard or think you've heard about this project and this initiative, but maybe just to step a little bit to the side and look at it from a different angle and a different standpoint, because we believe, and I think all people believe as humans, that we act and engage better when we have context for something, when we understand why something's going on. Nobody wants to just be told, do this because. Anybody got any children under the age of 10? Okay. Try to tell them because, and you're going to get a lot of pushback. You'll also find that children are miraculous adopters of the word promise. They will project promise onto you in a second. You might just say, well, we'll think about going to that movie, but what happens Friday? You promised. Why? Because that word has tremendous power. And it's actually a scary word. It has so much power that there's people in this room reluctant to use it. In the context of our profession, there's people in our company that are reluctant to use it in the context of our profession, because it really implies that you are guaranteeing control of the future. And we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. But when you promise, you're saying it doesn't matter what's going to happen. I'm going to happen. We're going to happen. And we're going to take care of you. And that's really what this talk is about. But in order to really give you the stage, an understanding of the stage that we're in, the phase that we're in, I wanted to play a call, a very short snippet of a call. Not to listen to how our employee handled the call. It's not the purpose. What I want you to listen to is what the family, the client, the customer is saying, and how they're saying it. And then every time somebody calls, try to recognize that they're really saying this, no matter what you think you hear. You may think you hear, I need the lowest price cremation. You may think you hear, I need to know how much a 20 gauge casket is. You may think you hear, I'm looking to buy a hole in the ground. That may be what you think you hear, but that's not really what they're saying. What they're saying is, I've got a massive problem. I'm going to give you this simple response and answer in the hopes that you will make this a simple problem solver for me, but it's not simple. And it's really reflected in the call here that when we first played this for people in your situation, they thought it was staged and phony and fake. So it bears repeating that this is a real call, a real situation. We were able to help this family.
My name's Laurel Miller. I spoke with somebody earlier, I think it was from this location, a David, but maybe somebody else can help me because he hasn't gotten back to me. The situation is I'm in the process of planning a funeral for my 14-year-old grandson. Anyway, we need to do it with as little cost as possible. However, Mom does not want to have him cremated.
Oh, okay.
So
Um,
I know.
Laura, can I get your last name, please?
Miller, Miller.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, Betsy, since I've never done this before, I feel like, you know how you feel when you go into to get your car fixed? As a woman?
Yeah, and you have no idea. No idea what to do.
I have no idea.
Yeah, what's wrong.
And I just, yeah, and I don't know who to trust. So I guess the best I can do right now is calling a bunch of people. But if I could find somebody that I trusted, that would be great.
Anybody ever get a call like that? Anybody ever take a call from a family like that? You know, in our mind's eye, we should view them as people that just had to leap off a sinking ship. Because her 14-year-old grandson is gone. She's having to deal with it. And that was never something she learned in school. That was not something that anybody ever prepared her for. It's against nature, so it's not prepared for. So these people are literally drowning. You know, and then you've got the little North Star boat here. See the little North Star flag there? We just did that. We just did that yesterday. That's pretty cool. Our symbolic job is really to be that boat moving through the ocean, picking up people like her. That's the job. Now, there's a million other things that we have to do to comply with laws, regulations, and details in organization, but that's the core of what we do here. And those of you that were here in the initial town halls that we did at acquisition a couple of years ago know that this company believes in growing volume, serving more families this year than last year, more families next year than this year, period, full stop. You also heard that we believe the sales department is not the whole company, but the whole company is the sales department. And that when the whole company feels like they're engaged in this care, comfort, plan mission, that they are actually engaged together in helping people like that on that phone who are really just saying, I'm looking for somebody to trust. Are you going to help me? Are you going to take advantage of me? Are you going to push me? Or are you going to help me? And time again, as we've been in this exercise of working with phones, we've heard people, the thousands of calls we've listened to in the last year, that have said something like what she has said far often than they've said, how cheap can you do it? Far often, more often, have they said, can you help me, rather than how cheap can you do it? When we got to train ourselves first and foremost in this initiative to understand that they're not asking for how cheap they can do it. We might have to be inexpensive. We might have to be cheap from time to time, but that's not the role of the first phone call. The role of the first phone call is to cement for them that they can trust you. So how did we get here? So 4 years ago, we actually started this program. Is this red button a laser pointer? Yes. So I've done this before and actually shut everything off when I hit this button. So I just always ask now. So phase one here, we actually, 4.5 years ago, we actually let people know we were going to hire a mystery shopping firm to go ahead and mystery shop, just to and record those calls and let people know that we're going to do some training on this. And it was pretty obvious that after about a week, all of our people could tell who the mystery shoppers were, because you can't fake this. I mean, if you can try, but if you try to fake, mystery shopping in our profession, people are going to pick up on it. You know why? Because you can tell when somebody's in a real bind, and you can tell when somebody's reading a script. These people that you just heard is a real situation with real emotion and are really in a bind. So we did that for a while and we stopped it. It wasn't effective, wasn't getting us anywhere, and we moved on. So then we moved into recording real calls. We're using Reach Local. It's a marketing entity that we still use. They go out on the internet and they create ads and ad space for Restland, for example, and they have tracking numbers that they attach to these ads and ad spaces so that when people are Googling funerals or cremation in Dallas or Richmond or something of that nature, they will come upon one of these ads, click, call that number, and we'll be able to track that call, that lead came to us through that number. A byproduct of that was that they would record the calls. And we began, recording them and scoring them and looking at them and sending out report cards and feedback to our organization so that individuals could listen to them with managers and try to figure out what we could have done better. But we didn't have a handle, we didn't have an understanding of what the global implications were. We didn't really see the vast number of people that are calling our businesses every day and what was happening with them en masse. We only were seeing these in isolation, so it was really hard to get a picture. But we had report cards, we began emailing recordings, and we moved on. And then in May of 2015, March of 2015 through March of 2016, a 12-month period, Jen, our director of marketing, began collating and organizing all of the calls that came to us. And with a year's worth of solid data, we just determined that we have some opportunities here. Just opportunities to get better. Just ways that we could perhaps figure out how to help more families than we are. And we found that out and discovered that because at this particular time, we were focused solely on care, comfort, plan. This was kind of our mantra. You've heard this before as well if you're in the town hall. What do? We care for the dead, we comfort the living, we believe pre-planning is the best way to do all three. Now, those are the kind of the core values of how we like to operate inside of our profession. But we began to realize that this caring really begins on this first call. And with ladies like that, because the vast majority of our shopper calls, more than we thought, were at need, true at need. They were either imminent or there'd been a death. Almost 65%. So if this is the beginning of caring, we have to make some deep impressions on people here when they call. And there's got to be a personal connection, because all these people are looking for, and all that recording is really looking for, is there a way to connect with a human being here? Am I connecting with a human being who I trust? They weren't calling up and saying, first thing I need to know is how much, how little. People do call for that. I know they call with those reasons, but those are sometimes the most scared people, the most lost people that are just coming in with a price because they want to try to get a quick answer and they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. And what we've got to do is continue to build this bridge back to them that we're here to help you. The core of our initiative is to look at the promise script that you've all seen and probably sick of. I don't blame you. And looking at these words, you're role playing with managers, you're role playing with each other. You're just dreading to answer the phone because you're pretty sure it's going to be recording. You're going to have to sit down with somebody tomorrow and make sure that you said all 75 of those words perfectly. That is not the goal, to say all 75 of those words perfectly. The goal is to just capture the spirit of 3 or 4 different concepts. One, to console or give condolence to people that are going through hell. And you're shocked. You'd be shocked if you heard how many people that work in our company and in this profession are totally tone deaf to that. People call up broken, shredded. And we got people saying the most unbelievable things I've ever heard in my life. I don't think they're bad people. I refuse to believe they're bad people. They're just not aware that when I'm answering the phone, it might be somebody in hell right now that I got to help. And the next few words that come out of my mouth might make the difference. And there's been a tremendous lack of focus that was revealed in this effort. So the first thing to remember about the script and all the wording is all you really got to do is remind yourself, has there been a death? They'll usually tell you if there's going to be a death, right? They'll usually say, no, but it's coming. I just got told X, Y, Z. And they told me I should start shopping around. So the first thing is we've got to remember that, and we've got to offer consolation and care. Second thing is we simply got to promise them we're going to help them. They've called the right place. You've got the right person. I'm not going to drop you. We're going to find a way to help you. We've never been unable to find a way to help somebody due to cost. We're probably not going to start with you, but if we do start with you and we can't, we'll find somebody that can help you. That's your promise. You're not promising to give them a bronze casket for $100. That's never been asked. There should be no trepidation about anybody at any level, administration, funeral staff, anybody in this room should be able to answer the phone and say that with confidence. It's management's job to back you up when they come in. It's not your job to know exactly and decipher exactly what they need or how they need it or what they can afford on that call. It's to tell them, you've called the right place, you've got the right person, I'm going to make sure you get taken care of. And when you hear people do that effectively on these recordings, and hopefully you've heard some good ones, you will hear the other side of the phone often. You can audibly hear it when they will just relax. And when they go back to the next of kin or whoever they're shopping for, they don't go back and say, hey, I found the cheapest place, Detlef. Don't worry. Got the cheapest place in town. You think that's what they're going to go back and tell them? What do you think they want to go back and tell them? I found a good place with some good people. And I think we can trust them. Because that's what I would have done, and that's what I have done. And if you've ever had to deal with this and been that third-party shopper for a friend or family, that's probably what you said. You wanted to find somebody that was going to take care of them that they could trust. You weren't focused on trying to find the cheapest place. And all too often, we're going right here to this price, and we just start rambling off with prices. I mean, we start reading the whole price list to them, which, as you should know by now, really does no service. It doesn't help them at all. It scares them. It intimidates them. It freaks them out. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what these terms are. You know, we think we know, everybody knows what a direct cremation is. They don't know what all these things are. You're throwing numbers at them. We're telling them this. We're asking if we have, does he have a pacemaker? I've heard all this stuff on the initial calls. Does he have a pacemaker? That's not got anything to do with helping them. They may not even know that. All right? And then, after we get done rambling all these prices are off, instead of just giving them a range of prices, which is what we're supposed to do, if they ask, we give them a range. Starts here, goes to here, but we have custom plans. We're in the business of custom designing. We can find a way to help you. What I just gave you were the list prices. Those are the prices we're required to keep. But your price does not have to be that. We're dedicated to meeting you where you are, with what you need, and finding a way to help you. And we got the best funeral directors in town to do it. Now, when is the best time for you to come in, today or tomorrow? Morning or afternoon? Would it be better if we came to you? Would it be better if we picked you up and brought you in? Or if you don't want to leave hospice, we understand that. You want to be close by. There's a Starbucks just down the street. Let's meet there. That's the mission. It's not to get the 75 words right. Everybody nod your head if you copy me. You didn't nod your head. Nod your head if you copy me. All the way in the back, nod your head. Nod your head. Okay. Then we have the option of not asking for money, because a lot of people don't. We learn from these calls. We assume that a lot of people were calling and asking for dollars. A lot of these people just said, I got to plan a funeral. I gotta, I don't know what to do. I mean, I think we want to cremate, but I don't know. And then the danger is then going into price, which we don't need to do. At that point, it's just skip that and set the appointment. You can come to us, we can come to you. We can have you picked up. No, that doesn't work. Then we can meet at a third-party location. That's the level that we ought to be aspiring to be at, to be in this profession. That should be a goal. You see, you should have a just incredible burning desire to believe that every family in this community should be here if they have to face this. That this is the best place. Not because it's the legendary Restland, not because it's the biggest, not because it's been around a long time, not because everybody knows about it, but because if you're in this crisis, these people know how to take care of you. My brothers and sisters, my friends, my colleagues know how to take care of you. I trust them. We are the place. And if you can't say that, then we need to work on why you can't say that. Maybe you've got a good reason. Maybe you've been let down. We need to unpack that and get to the bottom of it and try to figure out a way to move past it. Because people aren't coming here for they do come here just simply because there's heritage, but it's terrible to rely on that. Just because, you buried mom, you buried dad, they're out there, we're going to come there. Relying on that seems a very shallow hope. See, everybody in this room and everybody else that's not in this room ought to really totally and completely believe in their stomach, in visceral manner, that if you're facing this, we're the place to come to. We're the people to see. We're going to find a way to help you like nobody else can. And that's the beginning of all of this. And that allows us to persist with these other methods that when we've started doing this in May of this year, we began to realize that a whole lot of people were willing to do this and this. There were a whole lot of people who were willing to get picked up, and a lot more people than we thought were willing to meet at a third-party location. They didn't want to come to the scary funeral home. Does that surprise anybody? They didn't necessarily want you to come to their house. Why? Because somebody was sick. So it's just finding another way. But they're happy to meet in a third-party location, a third location where they can just talk about this. And you don't have to go in there. Sometimes it's just we'll just meet for coffee. We'll talk and figure out what you want to do. Those have been the powerful takeaways, because at the end of that 12 months, we realized that we had nearly 133,000 calls that we had monitored and recorded. Of those, 10,876 of them were actual shoppers. This is in North Star et al. Now, the important thing to realize, this is very, very important point, is Reach Local only captures about 15% of the calls that come into all of our businesses. We're working on a way to get more. But if you think about that, then in this same 12-month period, probably more like 1.1 or 1.2 million calls came in, and more like 40 to 50,000 of those were shopper calls. We just didn't we just aren't listening to all the calls, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Of those, 910 had appointments set on the first call. 38% of them became sales. And we know that because we took the last name of the person and we followed it through HMIS to see what, to attach it to a sales contract after the fact. 38% made a purchasing decision with us if we were successful in getting them to see us on the first call. Now, why do you think? And now, 16% was the closing rate on people that we did not get an appointment on the first call. Now, I think if you all can imagine how this comes about, you can think about yourself in this situation. What do you think they're doing when they're calling you? If they don't have a prior relationship with you, do you think they've got a list, or they got a web page open and it's YP Online or it's some other directory and they're just kind of going down the list? And do you think that they're writing down, your name and phone number and all your contact information and putting a smiley face next to it and saying they're a really nice person? They're probably not doing that. They got a mission, because a lot of the shoppers are not the aggrieved. They're not. They're 1 or 2 degrees removed from grief. They're a relative, perhaps, but slightly distant, or they're a friend, and they're on a mission. And it's obvious to us that, as in listening to these calls, that many of those people still are affected by the same phrasing, tone, and intensity of us saying we can help you, as they would be if they were the aggrieved. They're still looking for somebody that they can trust. So we have a massive drop-off in people that choose us. Now that in and of itself doesn't look very good, but it looks even more interesting when you get here. At need. These are true at need shoppers. First thing we did when we got this data is we didn't believe it. Got to be wrong. You know, that's Detlef's great answer. Every time Detlef sees data the first time, not right. Can't be right. Can't be right. We're way better than that. Can't be right. And I'm the same way, and probably so are you, when it doesn't tell you good news. So we went and we looked at all of those 10,800, did a lot of random sampling in there to determine they were true shopper calls. They didn't get it wrong. They were people that said, how much can I, do you, will you, type questions, and that was followed by cremate, funeral, bury, mausoleum, cremation, etc. All right, so there was really 10,800 of them. Of those, 6,700 of those 10,000, 11,000 were at need, and there were 1,417 sales events, so we got 22%. Pre-need, we got 17%. Again, these people don't have to buy, right? This pre-need. So we're still working these. Hopefully, we've got our CRM up and running now. We got a lead tracking program to help keep our counselors focused on what opportunities are ripe and when they're not, and how to keep things moving through their pipeline of activity in a very effective manner. But still, not very exciting. We'd like to see a higher closing rate. But this is different, because by definition, these 78% are gone to us forever. Because they called down the list and they found somebody who they connected with. Now I know there's doubters in this room. I know there's people already, I can see by the looks on some faces here that y'all think I'm full of it. I don't care, you're not the first, you won't be the last. I'm not offended by it. But if you think that I'm wrong, you're not listening to enough calls, and you should encourage your managers to let you listen to some. These people are not shopping the way you think they're shopping. Price comes in a lot, probably 50% of the time, maybe a little bit more. But they're not focused on diving as low as they possibly can. There truly is a desire for these people to find somebody's voice on the other side of the phone that warms up to them and connects with them and gets them to come in or go see them. Because they don't want to call down the list, everybody. You know that, right? They don't really want to go down the list. What do you think makes them stop? They don't want to call 20 funeral homes. You? Who would want to do that? They're calling until somebody stops them. And you can't stop them with a pitch, and you can't stop them with a magic word called promise. You can only stop them if you choose to use some of those words with a deep and personal meaning behind them, because you decide, I'm going to connect. And I've got you. And I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. You can trust me. And we just don't hear it very often. When we do hear it, do we get all those appointments? No. But we get a lot of them. And when people use their own words, but they connect, they get a lot of them. None of this is fail-safe. But this was the wake-up call about 7 weeks ago, when we kind of redoubled our efforts and said, if this is really happening, because we had to go test it again, because again, it was hard pill to swallow. That so many people were calling at the time of death across from Hawaii to Miami, and San Diego to Cleveland in our organization, that so many people were calling that they've had a death and they're trying to figure out what to do, and 78% of them, we didn't get. So we redoubled our efforts here and engaged you in this effort. Some of you painfully so, and probably skeptically. What I've been doing for a long time works. Why do we have to change it? Because of this. Because I don't want to change it either. I'd like to just do what we've always done. It would be much easier, and it's actually more fun, a lot less stressful. But you got to deal with this. This is reality. And Restland as a collective is no different than the rest of the organization. And we're getting the data we're actually looking at shows that it's right on par. It's amazing how this is kind of happening across our portfolio of businesses. So we began looking at this and saying, if this is only 15% of our calls, and we lost 18% of the at-need shoppers on 15% of our calls, how much have we really lost? I don't know. You do the math. A lot. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's just great, Brian, whatever, but, you think we can get all those? No. Unless you do. I'm not going to argue with you if you think you can, or you should. The question is, from a purely statistical background, you should be able to look at that and say we should be able to improve. There's got to be things that we can do. Words, phrases, actions, and behaviors that we can do that will improve us a little bit. Even 5%, 10%. And maybe it's just making sure that everybody that answers the phone takes a deep breath before they answer the phone and reminds himself that whoever's on the other end of that phone might be in the worst situation they've ever been in their life. And that they're not calling because dad's vase is stuck. They're calling because they might be in the worst place they've ever been in life. And how you handle your tone and timbre in the next 10, 15 seconds with them on the phone will dictate whether or not they're going to stay with you or not. Because they do not want to shop. They do not want to call the whole list. They will call down the list until somebody stops them, and they cannot be stopped with gimmicks. They can only be stopped with somebody that with passion and commitment and total belief, we can help you. You got my word. If we can't, you'll be the first we haven't been able to help. I don't think we're going to have to turn that off. And I'll go faster so that people don't melt in here. So this is the scorecard. Won't go through this, but if you haven't seen it, you can ask management team for it. This is what our screeners look at. We've simplified it, streamlined it a little bit here in just the last couple of weeks to give you feedback on what you could have done differently. And if you've been through this, I'm not going to call, ask anybody to speak about it. You can at the end if you got any questions, but a lot of us have been through this, and we just don't realize sometimes what we said on the call. I mean, you just you're busy. You're on the phone. There's a bunch of people behind you laughing and giggling, or it happens. This is a busy place. There's lots of people around. That's why the phones have got to kind of become a sacred space. And if you're in that space and the phone's ringing, y'all need to probably tone down the joking, or turn off the music, or whatever the case might be, and just kind of acknowledge it as if it was a family that just walked in. Because they can hear. You'd be amazed what they can hear in the background. You'd be amazed what we've heard on recordings in the background. Well-intentioned. I mean, nobody's trying to do that. There's just, we're going about our life. You got other things that you're doing here. And we do want to be a fun place to work. But when that phone rings and you're in that phone answering arena, you got to kind of shift. You got to automatically be able to shift gears and just assume, hey, this may be somebody that's in a hellacious position. And I got to be ready to be on point to give them what they need. So we use that to give you an opportunity to reflect on what you could have done and to maybe work on doing something better. So we have 3 email alerts that we send out every day to managers. One is a hot call, and a hot call is literally a legitimate lead opportunity. It was people that called yesterday, and they said, we want prices on X, Y, or Z, or we want to know if you can do X, Y, or Z. We want to shop, we want to buy, we want to do. Those come into an email into your management team by 6 o'clock in the morning. And then their job is to get with you and see if we got anything, and then they're supposed to call that family and do a follow-up. Call them right away, do a follow-up, and say, hi, I'm the manager. I know you spoke to Susie yesterday. I just wanted to call and see if you had all of your questions answered, if there's anything else that we could do for you. Even if you don't choose us, feel free to give me a call, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Been doing this a long time. And Restland's committed to helping people in this community. So even if you don't choose us, feel free to call me with a question. That's it. And then if there's a dialogue, a lot of times we call back, and unfortunately most times when they make that call, we're finding that they've already got somebody. They're very grateful. They go, thank you very much for calling back, but we already found someone. So what does that tell you? I'm going to go back to the list. They went down the list until somebody stopped them. And I've heard us, admirably say, well, that's fine. I don't need to know who they are, but just so you know, if money's an issue, we're happy to match it. And you'd be surprised how many people say, no, that's not really the issue. Thanks, but not important. I don't know what happened between them and that person. Something happened, but they're using them. Opportunity call is simply a call that could have been handled a little bit better. These hot calls, by the way, aren't necessarily bad. They're getting better and better and better. You should be extremely proud. I mean, did you all know that May is the best month you guys have ever had in history? Did anybody here not know that? Best pre-need funeral month in history for sure, right? Right? And the best cemetery month ever in memory. Now, apparently we have some long memories here because I guess it was Doug that said, well, there was this one month, but it was a large sale. And he's absent a large sale, you've never had a month like this before, all right? And it's because, you guys are getting really good here. In just 30 days, there's been dramatic improvement here, and there's been a commitment. But what's really happening now and across North Star and some other locations is really exciting is they're not waiting for the recording to come in. Whoever is answering the phone and not getting the appointment is immediately, after they hang up, taking that information to the manager and saying, hey, just this person just called. I wasn't able to get anything. And the manager waits 5 or 10 minutes and then just follows up. To say, I know you were just speaking to Susie. Once again, we just wanted to reiterate we're here to help. Is there anything I can answer that maybe you don't feel was answered in full on the conversation you had a few minutes ago? That's beginning to happen, which will ultimately make this unimportant. I mean, we might even stop doing it if we just had people say, hey, I just had one, wasn't able to get it. Here, Doug. Here, Scott. Here, Mike. And then they can call right behind it because that person hasn't gone down the list yet. All right? Better yet, a text to them. We're finding that text is extremely effective in a moment like that. To text them right back immediately if you get a cell phone. Most of the time, these are cell phones they're calling from, by the way. But to text them right back and say, hi, this is Doug with Restland. You just spoke to Susie. And, understand that you are in a really tough spot. You have my condolences. I'm really sorry to hear about your mom. But I'm here to help you in any way I can. And even if you don't choose us, if you got any questions, I'm happy to help. I mean, does anybody feel that that's pressure? That is what people respond to in our profession. If it's done with meaning and it's done personally. And the last one that we send out every day is a critical call, and I think, Jen, we've only probably done 3 of these in the last month. So a critical call, you can imagine what that means. It's Danger Will Robinson. It's bad. It's rut-row. That's where somebody just, was asleep at the switch. And a situation where they actually said, well, you might want to go use Parker Funeral Home, which we have had happen. Parker's I just made that up. It's not a Parker around here. I'm sure this has never happened in Dallas, but it has happened. It happened 3 times in the last month for various reasons. I don't know what. We don't know why. We met with the people. No, they didn't get shot. They didn't get fired. They didn't get hung. We met with them and just said, what was going through your mind? And every single time they were tired. They were sick. They had just come off a break. They were overwhelmed. And they didn't have something they could fall back on immediately to get them back in the game. They just said, if that's what you need to, they weren't rude. They just kind of said, you might want to check with them. They're a lot less than we are, without even really listening to the question, okay? So those are critical calls. Would you agree? All right. Now, don't think that those were intentional calls. But if you're sick, or you have an allergy attack, or God forbid you're hungover, and you're coming into the game, you know, and you're in the bullpen tomorrow and the phone rings, you got to have something to fall back on if you're not at your best, right? And a script is helpful, or maybe the images are helpful. Okay, condolence, price only if they ask, quota range only if they ask, and then try to get to see them, one of 4 ways. And this is what those daily emails look like. Again, I'm not going to go through this. You can see it, but a little summary score here. Was the caller name and phone number asked for? Is it obtained? Appointment asked for? Which appointment options were offered? Yes, office appointment. Was appointment obtained? Yes. Greeter, use promise, yes, and the associate, yes. All right? Now, up until about a week ago, and maybe it still holds, we have not seen more than 2 or 3 where we've offered all 4 options to meet. And 90% are just 2. Come in. There's a lot of people trying, well, come in. Okay, we can go to you. And then it stops. All right, and then we started seeing some 3s. Come in. Okay, we'll come to you. Okay, that doesn't work. Well, how about if we send a car to pick you up and bring you in? And only 3 times, I think, have we seen all 4, which is come in, we come to you, we'll send a car, we'll meet you at the coffee shop down the street. So all this really is to say is we haven't really tried everything until we've offered all 4 methods. And a lot of times they might come right back to the first one just because they're aware. We have heard people say, really? You'll send somebody to pick me up? Really? You'll meet me somewhere? Well, put yourself in their shoes. Aren't a lot of these callers? How many of them do you think are in a hospital or hospice? 50%? 60? Might be higher. We have funeral directors meeting people in lobbies all the time when they think about it. What we got to do is get everybody thinking about it at the same time, and then we can move the needle on those percentages. So a redefinition of passion and PACT, really, our PACT, which you've heard before, which is passion, accountability, courage, and transparency, really is necessary for us to deal with what I really consider to be a spiritual element of this initiative. I mean, this is spirit driven, not logic driven. Is everybody following me? Logic is memorize a script, regurgitate it. Okay? That's not going to get you anywhere. If it did, then anybody could read any lines for any movie or any play and win an Academy Award. Okay, what do they win an Academy Awards for? How they do it. Not what they're saying. How. And you're an actor. I mean, this is a bit of a performance. You've got to be able to shut off all of your personal demons, all of your personal issues, all of the bad things that happened on the way to work this morning, that you got cut off, what your kids did last night. Shut it all off, put it in a box, focus on this call. And you got to be able to do it like that. Just like the great actors do. They're able to do that. Boom, I can be in character. You don't have to remember a new part every year. I mean, the only part you really got to remember is you called the right place, you got the right person. My colleagues and I are going to help you. That's what we do. And we don't fail to help. And we're going to find a way to help you. So it's a visceral belief that every family in your market and community should use your funeral home and cemetery, and they would if they knew what you could do and how much you cared. If you don't believe that about Restland, then start talking to your manager about why you don't believe that. And then start asking, is it me? Is it our culture? Is it the company? And then start trying to work out where you want to be in that. Because you can't hide it. You can't hide it, and you really shouldn't really even want to be in this profession if you don't get a charge out of serving people and helping them in this time. I mean, it's what we do. And we should want to see and help more people so that we can hire more people in this community. We can grow our staff. We can grow our team. This business has done 3,000 funerals a year before. You know, we did 2,200 last year, almost 23, on pace to do 24, so we're already growing with this. We can easily get back to 3,000. I shouldn't say easily, but we can. And we can be staffed appropriately to do so as we're growing. But we have to decide here if the whole company is going to be a sales company, or if you are an administration, grounds, caretaker, or some other role here and you think it's just not your job. I mean, we have groundsmen, we have caretakers, some in this room, that have already taken this promise notion out into the verbal interaction face-to-face with our families. I promise you we're going to get it taken care of. I promise you that, you know, we're going to get that marker installed, that memorial installed by Memorial Day. I promise you we're going to have some flags up. We didn't tell them to do that. That wasn't part of the script. But it was part of the ethos and the spirit that we're trying to do, and now people are taking it and it's getting its own life because people are getting this. If you believe this, you in administration, if you're answering phones, administration, care center, doesn't matter. When you can become an ambassador, and I see a lot of the I Promise pins that were given out. One of our locations in Florida made those up, about 2 weeks ago when we had a meeting down there. And I think it's great that you're wearing them, but I hope you're not wearing them for each other or for me or anybody else. Wear them out into the public and you're going to be amazed, I hear, at how many people will come up to you and say, "What is that?" You know, it's a lot more welcoming than the Restland name. No offense, Randy. I love Restland, by the way. But when you wear your name badge and people kind of figure out where you are, you've all been through that, right? They don't do that with Promise. What is that? Well, I work at Restland Memorial Park and Funeral Home, and we're in the business of promising to help people in the worst day of their life. And I'm part of that team. It doesn't matter whether you're doing memorial order forms, liability relief, cash disbursements, doesn't matter. You're in it. We want you in it. And you can be part of this great mission. But you got to have this personal belief. We can't give this to you. We can't assign it to you. We can't prescribe it. You know, we can't order you to feel it, or else it's impossible. It comes from dealing with your own personal bias, your own personal cynicism, all the wrongs you've been through from this company or the prior company or whoever else you've worked for, all the promises that have been broken. It comes from setting all that aside one more time and saying, I'm gonna give this a shot and have some faith. You know, and if you can't do that, you'll be missing out. You'll be missing out on a great, enthusiastic, exciting part of your career. I firmly believe that. And you'll also be living, frankly, a miserable life. And when you're using our product one day, right before you use it, you're going to look back and wish you'd done things different. That you weren't so cynical, and that you weren't so bitter, and that you were a little bit forgiving, and that you were willing to say, nobody's perfect, no company's perfect, but maybe, just maybe, if I can get myself excited about what I'm doing again, and maybe even think about what I'm doing totally differently than I've ever thought about it, my life is going to be mine to live, and I'm not going to have any regrets about how I chose to live. It's not about the company, what they did to me, didn't do to me, overlooked you, didn't promote you, whatever. You start taking this to heart, you're going to be noticed. Book it. Guarantee you will be noticed. Because this is really the only thing that matters in this whole initiative. It's not every word in the script, it's this. And connecting with people on the phone or in the park or at the grocery store and letting them realize that you will be facing this someday, and God forbid when that happens, we are the place and I'm the person. accountability, we refashioned this a little bit to make it an extremely easy to understand distinction between what we are currently doing and what has been done in the past. You are not promising, as an administrator or anybody who's answering a phone for a shopper, you are not promising them a specific price, ever. It's not your burden. It's not your burden. That's management's burden. You're promising, they've called the right place, got the right person, we're going to get somebody to help you, and then you're letting your manager know what's going on, so that when that appointment, you don't need to worry about looking at a schedule. Schedule the appointment. We'll find somebody that'll go. Doug can go. Shake can go. Somebody will go. Or somebody will meet them. Don't worry about trying to fit it into the box, the neat schedule. You need to set it when they can see you. And then management's job is to back you up. Because if you're going to promise that we're going to help them, we need to help them. Now that doesn't mean I promised them they could get a Promethean casket for $200. Anybody know what that is? Now if you promise that, you're on your own. I'm just telling you. Okay? That's not what you're doing. You're promising you're going to help, and then when they get in there and we meet the family and figure out truly what they need and what they can do, management will make the call. And yes, we'll do a $5.95 cremation now and then. We'll do it. But we're going to serve probably 20 more families a month that we wouldn't have served by following this initiative. In fact, the more volume we grow, the better we do, the more generous we can be. Everybody gets that math, right? I mean, it works. And it's worked for us collectively in this organization. We've grown volume again 9 years straight, 2% a year, minimum, 4% last year. Last month, I'm not saying it's because of this initiative, but our year-over-year true at-need volume was up 13%. 13%, that doesn't happen. You just don't never hear about that. It's not supposed to happen like that. But when you have a lot of telephone traffic and you got a new focus on it, it can happen. So the accountability is for the managers, your management team, to be accountable to back you up when you give a promise. Everybody copying that? I like this. I don't particularly like cats. I'm a dog person myself, but you know, you got this little kitten who imagine themselves as a lion, you know, and we do realize that it does take courage to be a promise keeper. I know some of you are just feeling like you're stepping out there when you do this. Man, I'm stepping out. What if they don't back me up? Cross that bridge when we come to it. You know, it hasn't happened yet, and I doubt it will. So I have some faith. And if you're a cynic in here, you're probably going, okay, well, I'm going to find one. I'm going to do one of these, and then we're going to show. We're going to show them that we don't mean what we say. Give it a chance, because it does take courage, and you're going to have it. And then there's transparency, and this is really what the telephone initiative is all about. I know there's people saying, man, I never signed up for this. People listening to my phone calls and stuff. I didn't sign up for that. Well, you know, it shouldn't be a hammer, and it probably has been from time to time a hammer, but it's meant to be more of a velvet glove, and there is a lot of incentives that we are wrapping around this to keep people excited about this. But this is a mission, a cultural mission, to transparently let you know that we do listen to calls. And the goal of listening to calls is to coach and reward and excite. That's the goal. Along the way, you inevitably have to tell some people you could do better. All right? Coaches, especially at the professional athletic level, do not just sit there and tell everybody they're doing a great job all the time. That's not their job. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. You drop that pass on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl, it's okay. They don't do that. You know, there's some yelling. There's some intensity that happens sometimes. But along the way, once you win, everybody's high-fiving and dunking each other, right? Half hour earlier, they were yelling at each other on the sideline. There is that element to going through this exercise. But ultimately, you should want to try to get better. You should want to know if you maybe said or did something or had an off day that cost a family to go somewhere else. That's the mission of this. So we want to hire people from the get-go and tell them that we're doing this. We don't want to hide it. We don't want to be secretive about it. This is what we're going to do here, and it's not going to change. You know, but in an earlier slide, we did point out to you that the easiest way to overcome this is to immediately, when you get a shopping call, turn it over to your supervisor and see if they can make something out of it. The quicker the better. The quicker the better, and then this all becomes less important, if that makes sense. So again, there's these critical areas, and there's really just three that we notice cause the biggest challenge for people that are trying to follow what they believe to be the word-for-word script. First thing is, don't try to follow the word-for-word script. Everybody got that? I mean, memorize it if it helps you. A lot of us that were in sales many years ago, we had to memorize 90-minute presentations, word for word, and if we ever changed them, we got our ears boxed. But along the way, we learned it, and then that allowed us to do what? Personalization. We were allowed to inject ourselves into it over time. Learn it if you can, but you really just need to remember these three things. Number one, you got to have a salutation. That's the beginning of the call. Ask if there's been a death, and if you're not sure, ask if there's been an imminent death, and then just say, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, but I can promise you, you've called the right place, you've got the right person. And I'm just telling you what I used to say on the phone. With everything, I'm just as word for word, I say, you've called the right place, you got the right person. I'm not going to drop you. Because make no mistake, they are falling. They are falling, and they need somebody to catch them. And then when they get caught, they don't need to be dropped. And it always just worked for me. And then I would quote the range if they asked about prices, and then I would simply go and say, you know what, none of that matters. Those are our GPL, those are the required list prices we have to show. We are here to help people, and we always find a way. If price is really important to you, we'll meet with you and we'll work that out. If we can't, we'll find somebody who can. But the most important thing is, I've got to see you. You got to look in my eyes, I got to look in yours so that you can see if you trust me or if you even like me. And if not me, then my colleague. You owe yourself that. And we're going to make it real easy for you. You can come in or we can come to you. Those don't work, fine. We can have a car pick you up. Doesn't work, fine. We can meet you in a third. All four of them is the cycle. You got to just keep trying to let them know you ought not make this choice with a phone call because they're not ordering pizza any more than you're going to randomly call doctors and try to find a doctor on the phone that can diagnose you on the phone. You're going to ultimately want to go see somebody, and as professionals we should aspire to do the same thing. The second thing is we're not quoting ranges. Management team's going to make sure you got a range card in front of all the phones for cremation range, starts here, goes up from here. Ground burial starts here, goes up from here. And funeral start here and it goes up. And then the main thing to say after that is, but we have custom plans available for every family in every situation. If cost has never been a reason to not be able to help somebody, we're not going to start with you. Need to see you. Then we can help you. And the last is the close. All too often we're not offering all four choices. So these are the three problem areas. I mean, if you can get your head around these, and saying, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, or if there's not been a death, I mean, it's purely pre-need, just say, you know what, I'm glad you told me that because it does affect how we're going to discuss things today, but you did call the right place, you got the right person, I'm a pre-need expert and I'm going to take care of you. And then go through the same steps. Doesn't have to be rebuilt every time. So the main message is stop overthinking. The promise is not to promise price, it is a promise to help, all right? Management are the ones who have to make the call on what the price needs to be to serve the family. You can feed them the family situation, but they ultimately are going to need to sit with you if need be and really figure out a way to work with them if we have to. If you focus on promising to help rather than, promising a price, you're going to be a promise keeper and a call winner. Anybody ever heard of Simon Sinek? You did a TED Talk a few years ago called, people don't really care what you know, they just want to know why. Why are you doing what you're doing? The Power of Why, great book. I read it a couple years ago. This is his latest saying. Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. Too often, we assume that discomfort is this. All right? But the athletes that are training for the Olympics are passionate about it, and they do suffer. They suffer so that they can make it. But it's passion that drives them, not stress. They don't have a gun to their heads. They're doing it because I am going to win a gold medal, even though the odds are tiny, unless you're Michael Phelps. So a long time ago, when we started this organization, this company, we you know, it's amazing, really, what you know, how fortunate we've been to be where we are. Those of us that were with us from the day one, Detlef, John, you know, and how blessed we've been to have grown as we have, and to be in the situations that we have, and to not really have to grow anymore. We don't have to buy more businesses. It's not a goal. It's not a need. It's not something that we need to do. It's got to be a good fit. And it needs to be a cemetery or funeral combination. But in that journey, you know, when Mark Hamilton and I first sat down and began looking at kind of like the business plan, we had a list of things not to do. You know, I worked at a company that virtually all of you in here have also worked for at one time. Worked for them for 18 years. It was a great 18 years, most of it. And we left to strike out on our own, and we had a list of things not to do. And I guess one of the worst things I saw in that culture was how, in a location, especially big ones, like a Restland, but it was all the way down to the locations with 5 people in them, 100 burial cemeteries with 5 people. There were sales and operations were in constant conflict. Admin hated sales sometimes. You know, funeral directors hated everybody. The caretakers, you know, no, just kidding. The sales the cemetery caretakers were maligned, neglected, you know, treated as second-class citizens. All of those things happened. And I said, you know, what if we could just be a place that just would break down all those walls and all those barriers and really just have the whole company be a sales company? Because we really are. You know, every blade of grass these guys cut, you know, every memorial they straighten is so that you guys can sell something. You know, every removal that our removal teams do in the middle of the night, one of the most difficult, dangerous jobs we have in this profession. Thankless, nobody sees it. But you know how many repeat calls we get because of the extra 5 minutes that our removal team took in that home? To give that family another 10 minutes with that loved one who's lying there that they may not ever see again in that state or that form. They may never see them in that house. They know they're leaving and never coming back. And we got guys that are saying, you know what? You take all the time you need, Mrs. Jones. We'll be over here. Instead of doing this. That is priceless. That's passion. But all of that allows us to sell more. We shouldn't be ashamed of selling. We shouldn't be ashamed of selling profitably. Profitability is what paved these roads here this year. Profitability is what puts in new gardens. Profitability puts in new roofs. None of that happens if we're ashamed of what we do and what we're charging. So our goal was to have the whole company be a sales company. And I know we got a long way to go. I know there are doubters. There's always going to be doubters. I know there's people in here saying, my role is just different. You know, it doesn't really count for all this. It's not as important. I really, really want you to believe I think that's bunk. You know, it's bunk. I don't care what you're doing here. You're in this game. You're in this care, comfort, plan game. And its stakes are very high. You know, there's people that need us. And there's people that don't come here, that go somewhere else, that leave that somewhere else with a terrible opinion about this profession because of how they were treated. And that doesn't help any of us. So this is our primary goal. And it's all really kind of exemplified by the call we started off with. If you'll just play it one more time. There, Mike. Thank you.
name's Laurel Miller. I spoke with somebody earlier. I think it was from this location, a David. But maybe somebody else can help me because he hasn't gotten back to me. The situation is I'm in the process of planning a funeral for my 14-year-old grandson. Anyway. We need to do it with as little cost as possible. However, Mom does not want to have him cremated.
Oh, okay.
So, I know.
Laura, can I get your last name, please?
Miller, Miller.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, Betsy, since I've never done this before, I feel like, you know how you feel when you go into to get your car fixed? As a woman.
Yeah, and you have no idea. No idea what to do.
I have no idea.
Yeah, what's wrong.
And I just, yeah, and I don't know who to trust. So I guess the best I can do right now is calling a bunch of people. But if I could find somebody that I trusted, that would be great.
Okay, so that's our talk, and I want to thank you for listening. It begins with that call, and it really ends with that call. There's nothing else that really I can say that is more potent and powerful than what that woman is saying. And my firm convicted belief, actually, that most people are saying that in their own way. They may be using different words, but that's ultimately what they're trying to get out. And the goal of this talk and the work that you've been through in the last month and the work that we're going to go through in the coming weeks and years is really designed to have all of us get a little better, a little bit more focused when the phone rings as to how important this call is, because every call matters. Actually, every conversation matters. And to grow that pie chart, from 22%, maybe up to 30. And we don't have to try to get them all. It'd be great. I'm sure there's people here that think we can get them all, and we should get them all, because I've heard Texans are proud people, right? And I heard Restland Texans are really proud people, right? And that you guys fully expect to be able to get every call, and I'm hopeful that we can. We do have some work ahead of us, and a part of the work that we need to undertake is really just to let you tell us what's impractical about this. Because what I just talked about for the last hour and 15 minutes is really just pie in the sky. You probably feel like you just got out of a sermon, and especially, a Baptist sermon perhaps. And you're going, well, that's great, but that's not the real world. I mean, there's a real world out here. When was the last time he was in the real world? When was the last time you took a call? Well, I've taken about 2,000 or 3,000. It's been a couple of years, to be honest with you, but I've taken a lot of these calls, and this worked for me. Not saying it'll work for you, but you can find your own way through this. If you're dedicated to helping people. But there are practical realities, and there are challenges. And if anybody's got any questions about, it doesn't have to be about this. It could be about North Star, Restland, all the beautification. If you want to make compliments about all the beautification work we're doing here too, I'm happy to hear that as well, by the way. Love driving on your roads. I'm sure your families do. I've noticed our complaints are going way, way down. We're not perfect, but we're doing our best, as you are. But if you got any questions or any comments about this topic or anything else, I'm happy to take a few questions or comments or thoughts from anybody. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little bit concerned about asking them if we can send them a text message, only because I know a lot of the older generations don't text. So is it okay to just offer a phone call in place of it?
Well, you can ask them, are you calling from a cell phone? And because I'd like to send you a text. If it's okay. Now, I do know that we have non-management employees that aren't comfortable sending out their text and giving their personal information out. Fine. It's really for anybody that wants to really make the commitment, but it's primarily for managers to do that. We know this because just in the last 5 weeks that we've been really testing all of this, We noticed that people were really good on the callbacks, managers, but there are a lot of people, and their age is not really a factor. They're 60, 70-year-olds that are not answering their phone. But when we texted them, they immediately called back. And you probably are seeing this. A lot of us are starting to use text as the initial method to connect, and then a call follows that usually. So I wouldn't presume they don't. You can just ask, are you calling from a cell phone? Is it okay if I text you some additional information? And you should text them the website, the Restland website. Anything you can to kind of just keep them engaged, as well as, a little regurgitation of the promise. Just remember, we promise to help you no matter what. Cost has never been an object. Please let us know. My name's Marcy. Please call back. Text me back or call the main number. That's all you got to do.
It's also like giving them a business card over the phone, because they've got it now.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But you can also ask what's the best method to contact them, via email or by text. And then you give them the choice, and then you do it that way, because you can even, you can text from email. So,
You've been practicing alternative choice, haven't you? Because you're giving them two choices. Which way would you like to be? You're not asking if they want to be contacted. Which way would you like to be contacted, text or email? And you can, I'll send them the email, ask them for their email, send them the website, for Restland. All of that should kind of be ready to be pasted. You can have all of this set up to be pasted, into a text real quickly. But it's a personal choice. Managers, are totally expected to do this. I know that we do have some non-management employees that have said, I don't want to give my number out like that because, I don't want to. Fine. Even more important to immediately take that information to your manager and, in about a minute and a half and get it to them so they can follow up and do that. That's the easiest way to do it. But good question. Don't assume they don't have it. You'd be surprised how many 70-year-olds and 75-year-olds are happy to text. And go on Facebook, but they actually don't use the phone a whole lot anymore. It's the world's changing, for sure. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the frustrations that I've had on the phone, and kind of makes me lose my flow, is the delay. Do
Yeah.
you have a time
Yeah,
frame?
we're working on that. Well, we got to figure. We're not sure exactly what's causing it, Mike. Mike Zislis, you got a quick? This is Mike, our head of IT, by the way, and head of trust management. Working on Well, yeah, the question was, there's a delay in the technology, but I'm also going to take this opportunity to introduce some folks here. So Mike Zislis is going to handle this question in just a second. We also have Nikki Sessions, our director of HR over here. All right. Courtney, where's Courtney? Courtney's over here, the regional manager for HR. And Tanya Blaylark in the back, our head of client services. Stand up, stand up. Now this is why we had the prescient mind to bring him here, because we knew that we had issues. This is when you take over, by the way.
Thank you.
The question was, there's some technical delays in some of the transfers, warm transfers, and some of the technology that we're having, and we are aware of it, and we're trying to isolate it. But I'm going to let you answer the question.
Well, yes, we are aware of this, and there's several things that we're doing in the background that you guys don't see. One, we're actually increasing our capacity, number of phone lines that come into this location because of the increased call volume. We're going to double it, and some of you may know that AT&T Tech was here today or yesterday, and by the end of this week we'll have this in place. And we're also doing some upgrades and changes on the back end on the call recording technology that would reduce number of hands-off transfers and ultimately should reduce or eliminate all the delays or noise on the line. So hopefully by the end of this week, early next week, you'll see the results.
Thank you. I think the one thing we have. Thank you, Mike. I think the one thing we have learned is that telephonics is way more complicated than we thought it was. It's not just the telephone network. It's just trying to get a new system in place. Involves anywhere from 8 to 9 different vendors. You got network providers, you got technology providers, you got, I don't even know how to describe it all, but he gave me a map one time, a spider web, just kind of how all this works today. And it's complicated, and it is frustrating. We don't like it, and thank you for bringing it up. and we're going to keep working on it. There's got to be a solution, and we're going to keep digging until we find it. And also I mentioned her name a couple times in our presentation, but Jen Rudolph. Jen, if you'll just put your hand up. She's our head of marketing. Our genius head of marketing, and really helping with so much behind the scenes that it's really hard to even tell you how much she's working on. Thank you for that. I mean, it's a reality, and I wish we had a quick fix. But do let us know if it starts to get better. Because Mike's told me it's going to get better, and I'm confident it will. Okay. All right, I got that one down. Did you jot that down? All right, Mike's promising. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I know it's hot. Yes, sir.
I want to just say quickly, I've been here since 1981 on this campus. And for the people that are new, you may not feel this, but I do. I've never been given a turnkey operation or an opportunity to do anything, to get a call in. We've always been restricted. Our hands have always been tied. Guys, they're cutting the straps loose. It is a great, great opportunity. Okay? It's a great opportunity to do your job, to listen to these folks and help. 1981, guys, I've never felt this.
Nothing I can add to that. Thank you for that. Let us know if we stop.
I'll let you know.
Have no doubt. Anybody else? Anybody else? It's that hot in here, huh?
It's that hot.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here and giving me this time out of your life. You're not going to get it back, so I hope you got something out of it. And it was useful. It was good for me to be here and visit with you. You might have noticed we videoed this today because we had some requests. I've done this similar talk a couple of times, and there's been some requests for us to video it and get it out, because we can't kind of get everywhere all at the same time. So that's what we're doing here, and thank you for participating in that. I did tell everybody we should do it at Restland because that's where all the good-looking people are. So you made it easy. Easy choice. Thank you. I'll turn this back over to whomever. Brian, you want any closing statements, or Mike or anybody? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Have a safe trip home. See you around.